Okay, we're live outside the Saudi embassy right now, where protesters have gathered to demand answers on the whereabouts of Jamal Khashoggi, who was a longtime, a prominent journalist in Saudi Arabia who moved here to Washington, the Washington area, a little more than a year ago, going into what he called self-exile. He had always been supportive in general of the structure of the Saudi regime, of the Saudi royal family, but would offer criticisms of particular tactics without fundamentally calling for the overthrow of the regime. And as a result, he remained a prominent journalist in Saudi Arabia for decades. Only as the regime became less willing to stomach any criticism whatsoever did he go into self-exile, and he'd been living in Virginia since, I believe, around September of last year. There are now reports that from the Washington Post that the U.S. had intercepted communications among the Saudi royal family suggesting they were plotting to capture and potentially kill Jamal Khashoggi. Now, there is a duty to warn a U.S. resident if intelligence picks up threats to their life or their freedom. It is not at all clear whether or not Khashoggi. 2 Fridays ago, he went into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in order to get some divorce papers. He's getting remarried to a Turkish woman, and because of that, he needed the documentation to verify his past divorce. So he went in on a Friday. They told him, come back on Tuesday at 1 o'clock. A lot of his friends told him, do not go into the consulate once. Definitely do not go back Tuesday at 1 o'clock when they have time to prepare for you showing up to pick up these documents. He came with his fiancée. He handed her some of his laptop, a phone. He kept one phone with him, a source has told me, when he went in. So if you have been texting or communicating with Jamal over the last year or so, the Saudis now have those communications. He went in and he never came back. We're now being told by Turkish authorities that on that same day that he went back into the consulate that Tuesday, when they knew he was coming because he had an appointment, 15 Saudis flew in 2 private planes to Istanbul. Among them were a team of assassins, as well as an autopsy specialist and a bone saw. So according to the Turkish police, in reports that have come out in the BBC, Washington Post, and New York Times, there was an entire team sent to capture him, execute him, and dismember him, and take him out of the consulate in pieces. The Saudi response has been to thoroughly deny the allegations. Mohammed bin Salman is the crown prince. His brother is ambassador here in Washington, Khalid bin Salman. He sent out an email to journalists saying, this is absolutely not something that Saudi Arabia would ever do. It is preposterous to accuse us of something so heinous. But of course, that it is not preposterous. We don't know yet with 100% confidence that they did it, but the defense that they would not do it, it does not pass the smell test. They would do this. And also, what also fits with the Saudi regime's approach to foreign policy is not just the impulsiveness of this. They've been impulsive in a lot of the other debacles that they've gone into, whether it's the blockade of Qatar or the war in Yemen. It's the brazenness and the arrogance and the belief that they would get away with it. Think about this. They sent 2 private planes into Istanbul. That is easily checked. This is not something you're going to get away with. They sent an autopsy specialist. They sent other people whose training ties them to assassinations and murders. Like the Turks know who these 15 people are who came in, went to the consulate, were there for a few hours, went back, and then left the country. These are known facts and knowable facts. These are not the kinds of things that the Saudis could have reasonably expected to keep hidden. At the same time, and there was a Turkish official was quoted anonymously saying this and said, look, the Saudis have to recognize this is not the 1990s. We know what happened. Everything is under surveillance now, whether it happens inside the consulate whether it happens out or around the consulate, the Saudis have to know that there is a very good chance that they are under surveillance while this is happening. We have surveillance footage of the entrances and exits to the consulate. Many consulates are bugged, no matter where they are around the world. Was this consulate bugged? We don't know. The chances are yes. That's what you would expect. We have surveillance footage of Khashoggi going in, but we do not have footage of him coming out. If there was footage of him coming out, the Saudis would have been able to provide it by now, the dog not barking shows that it doesn't exist. They have instead been circulating through troll accounts this pathetically doctored image of Khashoggi walking out. All it is the image of him walking out with the image flipped. It's poorly done. It looks like an avatar in a video game just slapped onto an image, and they didn't even bother to change the timestamp. The timestamp is precisely the same one as the footage of him going in. It's not that hard to change the timestamp. Like they could, but they haven't even taken that effort. All of this goes back to an essay that was published in the Huffington Post a year ago called "The Birth of Fuckery." A lie that is more than a lie that is so grandiose as to become a power move in itself. It was written about Donald Trump and his willingness to tell lies that you know are lies. The purpose is not even to mislead you, because you're not going to convince the person that what you're saying is true. What it is to flex your power and to say to the person, you know this isn't true, I know this isn't true, I'm going to say it anyway, and I'm going to get away with it. And that's called fuckery. It's a term that's more popular in the world of hip hop, but it applies to a lot of what Trump says. Biggest inauguration crowd in the history of the world. But it also applies to Saudi behavior like this. When you put out an obviously doctored image of Khashoggi. Now, this wasn't from the official Saudi channels, but it's circulating among pro-Saudi elements on Twitter. When you put out something like that, or you say that we would never do anything like this, this is appalling, or just the brazen act of assassinating a journalist and a critic who is often called a dissident, but it's not exactly accurate. He did go into self-exile, and he was critical of Mohammed bin Salman, but he was also complimentary in a lot of ways to him, in ways that people like me would not be. He would applaud a lot of the steps that he was taking. And this fits with a lot of the other people that Mohammed bin Salman has cracked down on. That they were critical, but they were critical in constructive ways, in the ways that, look, I support your general project that you're engaged in here. I think you've made an error right here, or you've made a mistake over there. But what bin Salman is showing here is that, no, that will not be tolerated. There is one response to everything that I do, and that is full-on 100% support. And so here we are today, outside of the embassy. You have senators like Bob Corker and Marco Rubio and Bernie Sanders and Chris Murphy and Chris Van Hollen and Tim Kaine demanding answers, demanding accountability, demanding justice for Jamal Khashoggi. You have President Trump, meanwhile, saying, I think his quote was, I don't like hearing about this. I hope this sorts itself out. As I reported with Alex Emmons and Clayton Swisher earlier this year, when Jared Kushner traveled to Riyadh in 2017, he had recently been in intelligence meetings where he had learned information about Saudis who were disloyal to Mohammed bin Salman. Mohammed bin Salman subsequently told people that Kushner divulged intelligence to him about Saudis who were disloyal to him. I think in the wake of the apparent assassination of Khashoggi, that report of Jared Kushner's complicity here takes on new meaning.
Like what you see? I hope so. Thank you. So click the subscribe button below, and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from Rebel HQ.